Alrighty. We are back at it again with another video. Hello, my good friends. This is Chaos Angel here. We are back at it again with a part two, or actually, no, I do believe this is part. Yeah, I do believe this is most likely part two. Either not that part three. Technically speaking, part two would sort of be the Vieira video, but it's like either one of these could go first before each other. So it's like either part two or part three, regardless of which one I choose. I'll most likely just go ahead and stick with it and just choose part two, and Vieira will be part three. Now forgive me for like if I sound a little bit off. I'm still trying to recover from an actual cold. My throat is still having a little bit of a sickly taste or sensation to it, but we're just gonna continue on with it and roll with the punches. Okay, we're just gonna roll with the punches. Now, as far as what this video entails, we're gonna be getting into all of the jobs, new AF gears that we have going on in Shadowbringers, and just putting out my general thoughts on them and letting you guys know exactly what are some of my favorites. Now, honestly speaking, I really gotta say they really outdid themselves with all of the jobs that they've done thus far in terms of their gears. Their AF armor is just really badass looking. Honestly, they really did a very good job, and though many people will actually tell that a great majority of these are actually sort of like reused, or at the very least been taken from previous AF gears, there's actually nothing wrong with that, because as far as I'm concerned, the way on how they're looking at it is that with the first, these could pretty much be considered as like the first equivalent of the source AF gears, and if they're pulling it in that sort of direction, then I can actually see that being I can really see that in the long run. It definitely makes sense, considering, because it's like this could generally be the first version of like the paladin armor, of the gallant armor, or the valor armor, in combination with all of the other pieces of armor, as far as the chivalrous armor, or the what was it, the creed armor, and so on and so forth. It is really just a nice change to form, and it lets them be a little bit more experimental with some of the piece of gear, because I really gotta say, I love the look of the paladin AF4 gear. This is like quite possibly the best looking AF gear I have ever seen in quite some time now. And just for the paladin, like, look at the shield. The shield is essentially a combination of like the silver shield with like the blue color you got going on here, but then they also have like a little bit of the chivalrous, no, not the chivalrous, but more so like the creed when it comes to the wings. Like, if you remember, like on the creed, it has the actual wings adorned onto the actual armor piece, the chest piece, and so it's like you have that onto the shield, which is pretty nice. And I really like the color combinations that they used for this. It still represents, it still shows off the whole paladin motif, with it being blues, whites, golds, reds. Every single one of those staple colors for the paladin or the gladiator is essentially added in here for the paladin. It is definitely a nice looking royal or noble attire in a form of just being a knight, an actual white knight. And I really like how they added some spiffy like stuff here, like as far as the spot off collar right at the top, and I love how it actually has the accent with the actual blue in there, making it even more apparent. You can literally just see it point blank. And then of course the overall armor in and of itself is white with the actual gold lining all across the armor, and so on and so forth. Just all of that in combination with the slight reds with the scarf down to the side, as well as the actual cloth, the actual cloth coming out from the actual back. It looks a little bit different. It's more so like it's not exactly a cape in a similar mind to that of the chivalrous armor, which I actually like, because I think one of the things that made the chivalrous as well as the Creed armor not really all that great for me was the fact that the cape was one of the most apparent things about the armor that makes it the armor, is because of the cape. Here with this gear, it looks as if it's not really the most important aspect of it. I actually like it when you have pieces of armor that have cloths added onto it that essentially covered like the back end, or at the very least the front parts of the legs. But here they have it open to where it's like it's not interfering with the legs or your mobility or anything of that nature. It's just at the right length. It is pretty much covering only the back. You don't have a form of cape or anything. And actually, now that I think about it, if I remember correctly, the armor on the side of the arm where you're holding the weapon actually has pieces of cloth coming out from the shoulder pads. And I actually like the look of that as well. It makes it way more of noble-esque per se. And I really love, like, you have no idea how much I love having the actual cloth over the shoulder type look with when it comes to the regal aspects of pieces of gear or just clothing overall. The aesthetic on that is the most pleasing for me, especially when it comes to being an Elezen. Elezens are very well known as being the one race that has, like, you can put anything on them whenever it comes to clothing and they'll look good. Like, they'll look freaking good. Sometimes that's not really the case, but it's like when it comes to clothing gear, you know for a damn fact it's gonna look nice. Sure enough, it doesn't really work all too well when they're wearing armor, but here and there it usually works out pretty fine. So all in all, I definitely love what they did with the Paladin. It is just awe-inspiring. It looks so 10 times better than any of the other jobs, and that is exactly what I want for all of the new AF gears to be, is to be like literally standing above the others. Now, sure enough, many people have their own opinions on exactly what are their favorites. Some may think that the Gallant armor is actually their typical favorite, and that's what they're going to choose the Glamour. I honestly feel like I'm going to be wearing this gear specifically for my Paladin, and I will have it in my Glamour dresser so I can easily like wear it whenever I switch to it. And then speaking of which, one other thing that I like about the Paladin is just how simplistic the weapon looks, but not only that, I just love the overall design on the blade, and then of course the hilt actually looks pretty interesting. Let's see here, I can't really see the bevel too much, but in the long run, though it may look like a toothpick, honestly it seems like it's pulling inspiration from the actual like weapon that is a part of the Paladin's actual job story, the job quest story, which I definitely love the actual reference or inspiration that they're pulling from that. So it's like, that is definitely a nice touch on things. It is certainly much better than most weapons. I find that it's definitely better than the weapon for level 60. I was never really too into the actual shape of that weapon, and that is the reason why I don't even remember it. But I can't wait to actually get my hands on this one. I think as far as ratings go, I'm gonna give this one a 10 out of 10 for both the weapon as well as the piece of gear in and of itself. Very nice freaking piece of gear. I love every single thing about it. So with that in mind, that is what I find to be my opinions on the piece of gear for the Paladin's AF4 armor. And so now we move on to the Warrior, and the Warrior has gotten quite a good deal of like, I don't know what it is, but for some reason, now that I look at this on the Raw, I can't help but get a really strange feeling to it. For some reason, it's reminiscent to that of like the Alexandrian armor in combination to that of another piece of armor. I do believe the Fighter and Warrior's armor is exactly what this is pulling off. with this piece here, in combination to that of the Alexandria armor, you have like the shoulder pad that you have right onto the side of the arm, which is the arm piece right there, or is probably a part of the actual body piece in and of itself. And then the headpiece is definitely, I can only fathom, reminiscent to that of the fighter slash warrior's headpiece. They're typically similar overall, for what I can tell here, but one thing that I definitely like is the actual chainmail look that they have, as well as the actual slash of the coat. You have like the coat look that is pulling off from just the overall like fur pieces that are on the fighter and the warrior's piece. How should I say this? In the long run, it's looking like it's like an overhang, because you have like two going down at the very bottom, and then you most likely have another piece at the very back that's actually flapping down below, behind. And I definitely like the look of that. It is definitely 10 times better than the fighters as well as the warriors piece. And I really find that this is definitely a better inclusion with in comparison to that of the Ravagers. The Ravagers was something that I wasn't entirely a fan of. It looks good on a row. I think the great majority of the Warriors AF gear was good looking, more so on a Rogadan. Other than that, guys, as far as everything else, like the weapon, for instance, now that weapon, I really gotta say, it is a very nice looking weapon. It almost looks like an oversized version of the Source's like fighter and warrior weapon. What was the name of it called? I'm actually kind of surprised that I do not know the name all too much. But if I remember correctly, the name had something to do with it known as Bravura. I don't know whether or not if you need to put so much emphasis in the actual freaking. It was like brave or brave bravura. I don't know. I may be butchering the name right now, but it literally looks like an oversized version of this. So it's like, I can only wonder if the first is compensating for something. I don't know. Very dope looking weapon. I give that a 10 out of 10. This, actually no, I give this whole entire ensemble a 10 out of 10 for what it's worth. This is the most beast looking piece of gear out of the Warriors AF armor collection I have ever seen. They outdid themselves on this one. Good job, guys. This was amazing. This is badass. This is badass. And speaking of badass, look at this Dark Knight right here. Look at this Dark Knight right here, guys. Oh man, this job finally got me something that I can freaking definitely agree on right now. When I first saw it in the actual trailer, I was just like, ooh, Dark Knight Central, let's go. For real, for real. So, yes, with the Dark Knight, they actually looked a little bit more so into the, I'm thinking that it's more of like a mesh of the clothing and armor on top of each other, where it's like you have the armor on the shoulders and the arm pieces, the actual gauntlets for the hands and so on and so forth. But the overall actual coat is literally an actual coat. And even though it may not be as long in comparison to that of like the Chaos armor, I will say that in the long run, it is definitely better looking. I love the Chaos armor when it first came out in Heaven's Word, but it's just like I got a little bit tired of it when it came to it. it looked fine on Ezekiel, but then the look of it kind of got a little bit old. This is never going to be old because it's like, this is going to look amazing on Ezekiel, especially when I dye it even darker with pure black dye. I can only wonder exactly just how dark I can make this shit. Real talk, I am not even joking on that. And then, not to mention its weapon. Its weapon is literally reminiscent to that of just freaking Berserk, and I love every single thing about it. I just love simplistic freaking broadswords, claymores, all of that other stuff. Literally, no matter what you do. I mean, shit, my favorite weapon on Final Fantasy XIV for literally Dark Knight is the Boulder Blade. And if you guys know that blade, I just love the elegant touch of the black finish in the center with the freaking silver edges and the freaking intricate designs that are actually onto the black finish, and the bevel on the bottom, the freaking hilt, the connections, every single thing about that. It almost looks like a freaking cross, but a blade. It's such an amazing looking weapon. I literally have that thing glamored, and you'll see that in my actual video on stream when you actually see the job. My glamour set for it is actually pretty nice for what it is worth. It's part of the if I remember it correctly, it's a crafted art piece. It's a crafted piece for what I remember, and it's a very nice piece of gear that looks great on an Elzen for pretty much just the height of it. And it's obviously clothing gear, so actually I do believe it's leather. It's most likely leather. Yes, this if it wasn't for the headpiece, it's like we're trying to go for the whole entire thing. But if I was to grade this without the headpiece, it would most certainly be a 10 out of 10. I'm sorry, guys. Like, that's definitely not something that I'm going to freaking lower at all. I think for what it is worth, so far we already got 3 10s, and we're most likely going to be getting a 4th, because I'm just going to let you know right now, there's when I get into this next job, I swear. So yes, in comparison to that with the other weapons where you have like Deathbringer, and various other weapons per se, if I remember correctly, what in the world was the other weapon? What in the world was the other Eureka weapon? It was literally on the tip of my tongue, but then I completely forgot what it was. Yeah, I can't remember on that one. Yeah, I can't really remember on that one, but as far as that weapon that's supposed to be tied to Eureka, it is definitely simplistic, has all of the contortions and all that other stuff, the intricate, it's like intricate and simplistic at the same time, and it's literally simple, skinny, in comparison to that of the actual Deathbringer. The Deathbringer was a cool looking weapon at first for what it was worth in terms of the theme of Heavensward. But then overall, the look of it kind of got a little bit stale for me, and I just couldn't find myself to actually use that. I do know that in terms of the actual line of the relic weapon, Nothog was one of my favorite versions out of the whole entire line. That weapon was just so freaking edgy. I swear it was sick as all get out. It was sick looking as all get out. So yes, 10 out of 10 for both the weapon and the piece of gear. I very much love this freaking job. I very much love this freaking appearance. They outdid themselves with this. Thank you guys for actually making this clothing gear. And speaking, I don't even want to begin with this. Freaking Square Enix knew exactly what to do with the freaking Gunbreaker, cause guys, like, for real talk, when the second they revealed this job looked freaking amazing. It looks amazing. It's freaking literally a coat. This is freaking Rialto. This is one of my characters, Rialto, right here, excluding the hair top to bottom. This is Rialto right now. If it only I dyed it black, then it's gonna be completely Rialto from then. Oh man, from the fact that it's literally a coat looking gear is one of my favorite pieces of gear whenever it comes to it. I've been trying to like find something to facilitate my need of actually like getting a coat for my glamour for my tanks, because it's like I really wanted to go out of my way to freaking get the commander set that is from PvP, because that piece of gear looks freaking amazing. That's one of the types of gears that I really love for my my Ellison, my boy Ezekiel. And unfortunately, there's absolutely no way that I'm going to be getting it anytime soon, all because the changes to PvP. So for the time being, I'm just gonna have to go with what I can get. I tried to do a new glamour set for actually no, not for, but with the Alliance pieces that's from Gimlet Dark. But like when I first tried trying to make an actual glamour set for the Gunbreaker, I was actually planning on using the if I remember correctly, it was the Scolic gear. The Scolic gear, and it's pretty much just the chest piece and the leg piece. As far as the hand piece and the foot piece, I did not actually like the look of those pieces, so it's like I wanted to think of something to experiment on that. And the one thing that I actually found that really works with the Scolic chest piece as well as the pants piece is the freaking diamond gloves and boots from Omega. Actually, no, it's not even from Omega. It's actually from 06 Savage. If you collect the books and freaking get the drop, you'll be able to easily freaking complete this set. Unfortunately, I do not have anyone that I can really run 06 Savage whatsoever, so it's like I'm shit out of luck on that. I hope that I'll be able to do so later on in Shadowbringers to even bother doing that. But that was literally my plans with the actual glamour set that I had in mind for the Gunbreaker at level 70. Because if you dye those two Opa Brown, it literally freaking fits the gear like 100%. It looks amazing. And if you got a weapon that's like literally gold, oh man, you can go far with that glamour piece. So yes, every single thing from the cartridge to the side of the strap, the freaking leather gloves, the boots, the freaking long boots, every single thing about this fits my character, guys. Everything. It's just perfect. It's just perfect. Now, one thing about the actual weapon, reminiscent to that of the revolver, it is definitely something that I believe is pulling inspiration from the revolver, but not only that, is trying to be original in terms of its own look. At one point, at the very beginning, I thought it looked weird, but it's like now that I've been seeing it over and over again, it's actually grown on me for it being its literal staple relic weapon, or its artifact weapon per se. And so it's like it definitely fits the part. One thing that I'm definitely looking forward to is just being able to see all of these oh so nice different types of freaking gun blades in this game. So much. I have already pointed this out so much on how in the world I never really thought that I was going to be ever wanting a job like this when it came to it, when literally Gunbreaker was revealed to actually be a job. Like literally the gun blade in and of itself was going to be a part of it being a job, and that we were going to be seeing everything from literally Squall's kit literally being in this game. And it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Oh, I just cannot, I really can't gush enough over the fact that we're going to be getting all of this nice stuff. I really look forward to seeing the Ifrit weapon, because I feel like it's going to be very appropriate for this job. Explosions and fire everywhere. Or you know what, I think the Thornton or Bismarck weapon will actually look pretty good for this one, because of the actual blue effects that come from you using your abilities, or so on and so forth. And maybe the Goddess weapon will actually be a pretty interesting blade to look at. One thing that I'm definitely interested in is the Fiend weapon Yes, I really am interested in the Fiend weapon to really get a good gist of like the different styles of gun blades that they have in mind. But one thing that I'm really hoping for that they do is that I hope that they actually put in Lionheart in this game. Guys, is it too much to ask for to actually have Lionheart in this game? Is it too much to ask for? Is it? Is it? I don't think so. Or at the very least some version of the Lionheart. That would be amazing. But yes, overall this job is literally 10 out of 10 across the board. Freaking all tanks, freaking 100%. They did such an overwhelming freaking job. Like, they outdone themselves with the actual artifact gears for all of these jobs that represent them. I really love everything in terms of the details of this job. Just looking at many of the things about it, with the straps, the armor, the actual plating of the armor in there, giving a lot of detail in terms of it being out in battle, and it's like you're going to be taking a lot of damage because you're a tank, so it's like you still need to have that form of armament in order to protect yourself. So it's like they facilitated that by actually putting something of like an actual skin like armor under the coat. And I really love the look of that. It really looks good. It really looks amazing. So I am actually going to be giving the Gunbreaker a golden seal of approval for just being perfect right off the bat. It is a very, very nice looking piece of gear. I am just going to say that right now. It is a very, very amazing piece of gear. And so now we're going to go ahead and move on to the healers. The healers have gotten... I really gotta say, like, even they have gotten nice looking gear. Like, for instance, the White Mage has gotten to a return to form, back to its staple look, with it being a mixture of essentially the Cleric, as well as the Orison gear, if I remember correctly. I don't know whether or not if that's entirely the case. I think it was called the Orison gear from Heavensward. Now, one thing that I didn't really like about the Orison gear was actually the headpiece. It kind of looked a little bit weird, but considering how the overall theme of Ishgard had like the sort of cathedral aspect to it, chapel or so on and so forth, more like a form of church or a ministry of some fashion, I could definitely see why they did that for Heavensward. It just didn't look right in some ways. It looked right on an Elezen as far as a female Elezen is concerned, so it was like that was fine, but it's like if you went for like any shorter characters, it kind of looked a little bit off as far as the whole entire dress is concerned. But yes, I can definitely see exactly where they're pulling it from. It is definitely from the healers as well as the Cleric piece. I think it's more so just gearing towards from the Cleric piece, and then as well as the Orison gear. I can't really see much of anything that's being pulled from the Seventh Heaven, unfortunately, other than the fact that it looks like way more elegant. Like, this thing looks like a freaking wedding dress for what it is, for what I can tell here. And then of course the staff. The staff is literally just exactly its Lily's sake. It's the Lily gauge. It has an actual freaking lily adorned on top of the staff, and that is so appropriate. Like, look at just how elegant this thing is. And I really just cannot wait to see my Zelene wear this piece of armor. This piece of equipment is just breathtaking to look at. It's just absolutely breathtaking. Everything about it looks sleek, looks beautiful, looks absolutely gorgeous, and I just can't wait to see what it looks like on all of my characters as far as my females. So with that in mind, I actually give this one a 10 out of 10 for everything. The headpiece, definitely better than the majority of all the other headpieces, and it actually fits the part. So it's like, that definitely wins out on everything so far from the previous previous gear, as well as the weapon for this one in comparison to the previous weapon and the previous weapon after that. I literally can't wait to see exactly what it transitions into in the long run. And that's one of the things that's going to be very interesting, because I really wanted to keep the aesthetic that it has going for it, but I want them to see what they do to elevate on that and like literally build up on this aesthetic that they have going on here. So next off is, at the very least, they didn't really do anything too terrible to the freaking equipment of the AF4 gear for the Scholar, and than they did with the skills. I'm just gonna point out right now, unfortunately, I know that may be too soon, but I just want to say they outdone themselves with the Scholar, because they really brought back the actual like aspect of the Scholar into this piece of gear. This is essentially what you would pretty much call the first version of the Source's version of the Scholar's artifact armor for the first very ever. The Arjut armor, or just pretty much the Scholar's artifact or something of that nature. That's literally what it's called. Actually, now that I think about it, for as far as all of the gear in here, one interesting thing to talk about here is that a great majority of these, I believe that they're actually known as the Ronkin armor or something of that nature. And that's interesting. That's mainly due to the fact that either that or that was mostly the belt. I'm not 100% sure. They may actually still be named something else entirely, but it's like the accessories are actually I do believe I remember seeing something along the lines of it saying that they were Ronkin. And that is interesting, considering how Ronkin, the Ronkin Empire are essentially what you would call the first Allegan Empire, is what I can essentially be pulling from in terms of lore here. And that is going to be a very interesting note to fall onto once we actually get into the game and look into many of the things as far as what each of the origins on various other things in their lore will have things to do with these pieces of gear or something of that nature. We don't really know exactly what we're going to be getting ourselves into when it comes to this point, but I definitely would like to know a little bit more of the origins of some of these pieces of gear. But getting back to it, yes, they have literally went back to the Source's version of essentially the Scholar's artifact armor number 1, and literally touched up on a great number of things, like the intricate designs that you see onto the gear, the patterns, the etching into the coat, the emblems, the ribbons or something of that nature. It's just like you have that scholarly look, that actual academic look back again, even in spades, with the fact that you have them nice seductive looking glasses going on there. Like I see you girl, looking at the corner, and I'm like, okay, it's okay. But nah. And then of course they are keeping with the traditional colors of the actual Scholar, with it being like a sort of moss green in combination to that of the blues that you would have in combination to that of actually the Scholar and the Arjut armor. And then I do believe they're actually pulling a little bit more from the Orator's piece of gear in terms of the colors as well, excluding the black, but there is a little bit of black here and there. But one thing that I also like is the fact that we now finally have freaking boots. Like, dude, guys, every single time that I kept on like looking at a good majority of the Scholar's AF armors, I just couldn't help but like look at the shoes each and every time, and it's just like, what are those? Seriously. Like, seriously, I just had to go there. I just had to go there. But real talk, Um, as far as the differences that we have here with the Savant armor, that was a completely different approach in and of itself. And I wasn't all too fond of it in terms of aesthetic, but it was like that was the aesthetic that they were going for with the actual vibe of Heavensward and the area that we were going to be in. So it's like that makes sense. But now with the fact that we are going to a new realm, we're going to a new world, we're going to something that has more lore, more aspects, more differences in comparison to that of the source, them going back and actually giving us essentially the first version their take on exactly what is like their jobs look of appearance in their artifact armors that have been actually passed down to various other adventurers or just those who study that art. And then not to mention the fact going into the actual weapon of the job, it just like just looking at it from here, it definitely looks nice with the actual white color in the on the cover itself. It's looking like it has like a form of reflection for some strange apparent reason onto the actual pages, which is interesting. But I think that just wasn't rendered all that well. But one thing that I definitely like in terms of details is the fact that it has a pen onto the side of the book. That is definitely a nice addition to it. I really like the look of that. And overall, yes, this is a very nice return to form for the Scholar in terms of aesthetics. I definitely like the look of it in action when I saw the not the launch trailer, but more so the Job Actions trailer. And yeah, other than that, they did a very good job. They really outdid themselves on this one right here. And now we have gotten onto these, oh boy, the Gastrulation. Now, here is actually the first, the first version of literally the Gastrulation's gear. I think they are kind of going into a combination of sorts with what they got going on here. Like, I see a bit of like the Welkin in this, but not only that, I actually see a variety of other things, whereas like you still have much of the spatial like aspects as far as many star like symbols, jewelry, so on and so forth. You have like the silver additions or details that are actually been added onto the skirt. That makes it look like a starlight or something of that nature, almost like you're looking at space. I definitely like the look of that in terms of just the details. And then, of course, when you go a little bit higher with the headpiece, the headpiece is actually a similar piece to that of one of the crafted pieces. And they work, but at the same time, it's just like it's not one of my favorite pieces for like when it comes to headpieces. But in terms of design in and of itself, it is definitely nice looking for what it is worth, with the silver lining, the actual like head bracelet. For what I can tell here is what is actually causing that to be like staying in place with the cloth going under it and whatnot. And then of course the jewelry that's hanging onto the side, and then with the armlets that are onto the arms, the silver pieces, rings, and so on and so forth. They are very nice looking in tandem to the general theme of the gear. My only issue is the fact that I kind of wish that they would have made it more so like an actual dress, because I don't really know what to I really don't know what to say about like what this would be called. What exactly is this called here? Because I can't call it a tank top when it literally has a dress as the main vocal point, the main focus here of the piece of gear. I can't really, is that like a midriff? I don't know what it's called. I really don't know what it's called, guys. I just really don't. But the AF3 gear for the Gastrulation is kind of weak to me. in comparison to that of like the Constellation gear, the Welkin gear, and what have you. Now, however, the weapon actually looks really good in comparison to that of the Stormblood weapon. Yes, the Eureka weapon. I wasn't really all too fond of the look of that one, but for this one, it's looking like they're actually going for the first version of like the Welkin, the Heavensward relic weapon, and I really love the look of that. As far as the tassel that's literally attached to the actual astrolabe, and the astrolabe being that of an actual moon, with the silver finish and the blue crystals or sapphires. They may actually be sapphires in there. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's definitely nice looking. It definitely fits the part. And then it's like you have the smaller moon in comparison and a golden color, which contrasts with the silver, making it add a little bit more of a nice appropriate touch, adding on to that. And then of course the star that you would mostly see adorned everywhere around the Astrologian's gear. So like every single thing about this works in tandem to that of the armor, and I like the look of that. Like the weapon itself, I would definitely give a 10 out of 10, but the armor is like, I just can't get into this. Like I kind of wish that it was more so like an actual dress, where it's more like this looks like the shoulders, the tank top like shoulder here just doesn't make any sense to me. If they were to have made it to where per se it was a shirt, more so like a shirt, or like just how the constellation shows the actual like shoulders, and it could have worked that way more so for what I know of. I feel like it would be way more appealing per se to me. This I don't really know what to say about that, because it's like I look at Orion J and as fabulous he may look in the gear and whatnot, I just don't really like the look of it in my opinion. So it's like this one kind of gets a 5, unfortunately. It's not really suiting to my taste, which is sad, but other than overall design in terms of the colors, the color choices, and everything else, that is just absolutely nice. I loved what they did with the actual color choices here. And now we move on to the actual DPS, and good lord, they did such a good job with the DPSs here, especially with the monk, because look at this. This is so much better than every single monk gear combined. It's amazing. They really outdid it this time. They really did a very good job here. So to begin, what all I can think of is like this is almost something that you would pretty much say is like the Eastern version of like the how should I say this, the monk gear that was essentially the Western version for the Alamigo area, literally just from the Alamigo, because of how like the monks are a derivative from Alamigo in terms of like the teachings and whatnot. But not only that, you actually have many other things going on here with just the core style and look. Like if I remember correctly, a good majority of this is actually being pulled from the melee gear, for what I remember correctly. And that is definitely nice, considering how they are definitely trying to stick with the color scheme of the yellow. The yellow is definitely there, and of course I think they traded the orange to red instead, but it's like it brings the red actually comes out even better in comparison to like the orange that's actually in the melee gear, because of the contrasting color to the yellow. So it's like that is definitely appropriate. And then of course with the brown color of the actual cloth that's in the front, with the actual it's like the dark the light brown to the dark brown contrast colors, is just like it's so appropriate. Everything about this, from the armor, the shoulder plates, the shoulder pads or whatnot, and as well as the armors that are actually onto the legs, making it to where when you're doing all of the kicks and whatnot, you're actually feeling that and it's protecting you at the same time. And then just again, like in comparison to that of the pacifist, you don't really have like an actual weapon. The weapon is the literal gauntlets that are literally onto the hand that you see at or around here. And I like that they did something similar to that with the pacifist, where it's just like you have like an effect that's just sitting on top of the hand, and that makes it so it's just like we're not dealing with the pointy weapons anymore, guys. It was really getting annoying. We're probably still going to be dealing with it when it comes to the crafted weapons, but I can still take that regardless. Then everything on this is just right. It's just right. Like, every single thing about this is perfect. This is the kind of stuff that I like more so when it comes to the actual monk gear, because this looks like this would be monk gear. Like, this actually looks like an Eastern style like monk gear that that usual monks would be able to wear. Just a little bit more flashy per se. It's a little flashy in some way, shape, or form. But I really feel like this will definitely look really good on Ezekiel, as well as many of my my other races, like the Hures, probably looking pretty good on Hakim for what it is worth. So this, for the starting of the DPS, Monk actually gets a 10, because it's like for all the others, I do believe like for the melee they look kind of really weird. I wasn't really all too fond of the colors. It was just plain yellow and nothing else. In terms of the style, I mean, it's appropriate for that of the monk when starting out, due to the actual origin sake of it. So it's like I won't bash it all too much. I think I would consider it, considering I would probably give it maybe a 6. And then it's like Tantra, unfortunately, no. That gets a 1 when it comes to the male. I don't know why in the world they did that. Like, every single thing about it just doesn't look right in terms of like actual style in comparison to many of the other pieces of gear, as well as their actual origin. I really have no idea what it has anything to do with in terms of the vibe when it comes to Heavensward. It was a weird choice in design. Pacifist, however, kind of gets an 8, because it's like I love the actual opening with the use of the jackets and so on and so forth. You're actually seeing the body similar to that of the Tantra, but it's like it's way more appealing in comparison to that. So yeah. And then the colors combinations are definitely meshed really well with the blacks, I think the orange reddish color of the scarves, or is it more like what would it be called? It wouldn't be called a scarf. It would actually be called something else. I can't really remember in the long run, but just know essentially the thing that wraps around your waist, it definitely fits for what it is worth when it comes to the actual handpiece, the actual chest piece, and then of course the foot piece, because it's like you have those small little touches of those colors added in within each of the pieces, and it's just very, very nice looking. It is very nice looking. But yeah, freaking AF4 for the monk, they really did an outstanding job, and I honestly think they did such a good job with it. I actually give it a golden seal of approval. Like, it gets a 10 out of 10 and a golden seal of approval. This is nice. 10 out of 10, 2 thumbs up. Never do what you did again, and so on and so forth. So moving on with the Dragoon. The Dragoon, I think they're pulling quite a lot of things from a good chunk of like every AF gear for what I can tell here. Like, it looks reminiscent to that of the Draken armor, but then at the same time it looks like it has a little bit of the Dragon Lancers in there as well, and it's like it's pretty appropriate. Like it's pretty appropriate. Especially with the colors. The colors are definitely the staple colors that you would see on a Dragoon, with the violets, the sort of bluish purple colors that you would typically see. The dark schemes as far as how the dragons would be colored in some way, shape, or form. And then not to mention, like, the weapon looks freaking sick as all get out, guys. Like, you can't even mess with this weapon. Oh man. I would definitely give the weapon a 10 out of 10, but it's like, as far as the as far as the piece itself, I think I would more so give it an 8, because one of my problems is that I'm not really a fan of the openings that they have going on here with the arm piece, and I do believe the chest piece, because I think it also adds on to the chest piece. I wish that they kind of would have done something similar to that of the Dragon armor, where it's like they do this for like the female version, but for the male version they more so cover up the actual top part with even more armor, because honestly I feel like that would be even more appropriate than shouldering the actual like shoulders and so on and so forth, that like that literal cut right there. At the very least, give it like some sleeves or something in the inside, something along the lines of that. I find it a little bit off-putting when you have all of this at the very like bottom, excluding like the foot piece. At the very least, the foot piece is still kind of forgiving, where it's just showing the actual toes, but everything else is just like literally covered. But then you have the arm pieces, and then up above, I don't really know why they did that. It's kind of imbalance, honestly. So yes, that is kind of the reason why I would be giving it an 8 out of 10 instead of just a 10 out of 10. Still an amazing looking gear, definitely in comparison to that of True Blood. I really gotta say, True Blood kind of looks a little bit too clunky to me. It looks badass on the Stynian though. I'll just say that right now. It looks badass on the Stynian, however. So now we move on to the Ninja, and the Ninja has actually been brought out of the shadows and into the light. Because look at these traditional, like, Eastern Oriental colors here that I'm seeing. Holy crap. I'm literally getting a sort of, how should I say this? I'm getting a sort of, like, Jiraiya feel from the colors that we see here. It's definitely apparent that they're bringing out the whole sort of, like, Eastern style of various other stories when it comes to shinobi and so on and so forth. So like, this look is definitely a nice touch, a nice change for what ninjas have usually been, which is essentially the usual dark colors, a little bit of like purple, violet, but more so blacks, blues, and what have you, because of the fact on how they do well in helping you vanish into the shadows and so on and so forth. But it's like, one of my biggest things here is that I love the look of the weapon. The weapon looks absolutely beautiful. Like, you just cannot touch the look of this weapon. It looks absolutely amazing. It really, every single detail like etched into this freaking like hilt, the freaking handle looks just absolutely amazing. The bevel looks very nice. Look, with the added additions of like the extra cloths that are literally of the same color, that is similar to that of what hangs off at the very back of the piece of gear, where you have the red and then of course the white, being similar to that of like a cloud, which is what you would see on the actual like hilt part of the weapon, of the blade, and then of course this flower motif that's etched onto it. It's such a nice looking job. Like, it's just such a nice looking piece of equipment. Honestly, it looks really good. And then of course you have the, instead of the blue or the black, you have literally again red added in there on the scarf. I do believe it's actually a combination of different colors here. It's really hard for you to tell because of the position that the male is in, but I do know that I've seen the female wearing it, and it just looks so good. It looks so good. So it's like, as far as the males are concerned, I think I would give them a 9 out of 10 because I'm not 100% sure what it really looks like. I think I can just like take a look at Larry Zor's video and really pull from that. But it is definitely a close 9 to 10 out of 10. And the females are definitely a 10 out of 10 because it's definitely more appropriate looking on the females in comparison. So yeah, that's essentially my opinions on the actual ninja gear. And so now we have gotten to the samurai. And the samurai, guys, I already told you, every single thing about like clothing gear is going to look amazing to me because just look at how sick this thing looks. Look at it. It's literally freaking half. This looks so appropriate for, like, I honestly, the second I look at it, it looks something reminiscent to that of literally a Ronin would wear. And then if you could not tell here, but something about this looks very familiar the second I saw it, like in the Job Actions trailer. Like, I could not help but picture a certain someone from a Final Fantasy game that I'm sure many people would like to see in Final Fantasy Dissidia NT, and the one I'm talking about is Auron from Final Fantasy X. This looks like it's straight up reminiscent to that right now. That is amazing. And so it's just like, I'm sorry, I don't really have much to say other than the fact that this is the 10 out of 10 with a gold and silver approval. Everything about this is perfect. It's everything that I like. And I really can't wait to see what it looks like when it's dyed freaking black on Ezekiel. Like, this looks just absolutely amazing with the sort of, look at, as far as the weapon, the hilt is literally that of a dragon mouth freaking using dragon breath, but the dragon breath is literally the blade. You see that so much, but it's like seeing it here, that this is one of the things I like most about the weapons for the samurai,